The controller told us that these objects had been observed for over 2 weeks, coming down from over 80,000 feet, rapidly descending to 20,000 feet, hanging out for hours, and then going straight back up. For those who don't realize, above 80,000 feet is space.
Is there a correlation between any of the characteristics of these UAPs, UFOs?
What we tend to see are the smaller vehicles tend to be, think of a sports car. The large ones tend to be not always, but almost exclusively either triangular shape or boomerang shape.
Werewolves?
I see dead people walking around like regular people. They don't see each other. They only see what they want to see. They don't know they're dead.
The UFO UAP community was fairly surprised. Shocked might be a better word.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
Biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human.
Do you think there is life on other planets?
Well, I'm not quite sure, but I suppose there would be.
I've seen a flying saucer.
You've seen one?
Yes, definitely. At Lane Cove.
When was this?
1953.
You don't think this is a figment of your imagination?
Several other people with me saw it.
I'm not wishing that all that stay with me.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
There is now a new UFO whistleblower with some major bombshell level statements.
There is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
Government UFO revelations and whistleblowers with one of MUFON's board of directors, Rob Swiatek. Episode 68 of the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast, live edition. Welcome to the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast, where we explore the unexplained and mysterious phenomena that have occurred throughout the state of Michigan and beyond.
From UFO sightings to ghostly encounters, we delve deep into the stories, the evidence, and the theories behind these strange events.
We are your hosts. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Wayne.
We are an educator duo that after an encounter with a triangular UFO in 2018 in Michigan, we decided to investigate UFOs and the paranormal. In this podcast, we will be speaking with eyewitnesses, experts, and researchers to uncover the truth about some of the most intriguing cases of paranormal activity in and around Michigan.
Our goal is not to convince anyone of the existence of these phenomena, but rather to provide a platform for discussion and exploration. So, buckle up and join us on this journey down the paranormal rabbit hole.
On an escalator.
And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to another live edition of the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast. Today is the 29th of September, 2023, and it is time to get settled in on this Friday evening as we get ready to bring on our guest for this evening, Rob Swiatek, who sits on the MUFON Board of Directors and is a UFO researcher himself. But first, let me bring on my lovely wife, co-host, and the bird of prey of the live chat, Michelle.
I love being called the bird of prey.
Yes, you are the bird of prey.
I really do.
Yep. Your students notice that you are the bird of prey.
I know, when I can like look and smile at them and then all of a sudden catch something out of the corner of my eye and it's like whoosh.
All right, who threw that? All right, for those of you listening to this at a later date on your favorite podcasting platform, you can catch this show live and participate in the live chat. We currently stream on YouTube, and we're now back on Twitter, or now known as X, and we stream live to Facebook at the same time. We have some of the best live chats on this topic around, so come on in and enjoy the live show. If you are here with us live after the live stream, we will be releasing the audio of the show on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, Google Podcast, Audible, and many others. And just as a side note, we seem to be getting a weird echo coming back from Rob when we bring him on. So we're going to try to talk a little quietly, but Rob sounds great coming back to us. So once we bring him on, you'll see what we're talking about here. Michelle, what do we got going on for hellos?
Talking quietly.
I mean, you can only do so much. This is live, not TV, live streaming. So this is the things that happen.
Well, obviously we've got to give some quick hellos to, we've got Rick Davis with us. We've got Mike J. We've got Straw Dog and Girl in the Desert. A quick hello. I know that she had to jump off for a little bit, but she'll know that we said hello.
Yep.
So, and thank you all for spending your Saturday night with us. There's some folks that are watching the live, but they seem to be a little quiet right now. That's okay.
Yep. You are allowed to watch.
Yep.
But this live show and podcast happens because of the viewers and listeners of the show and your amazing support. If you would like to help support the show, you can send donations via Super Chat, Super Stickers, PayPal, or become a YouTube member. You can also visit our merch store and join our Patreon. You can find all those links below in the show description. However, Michelle, what's the best way that people can support our show?
Well, obviously they can like, share, and subscribe.
Yes. And don't forget, leave a comment below after the show. We love reading those, and we do read them all and take everything you tell us into account, especially if you want us to get on any specific guest.
Well, we've got a couple more folks who have joined us. Hello and welcome to 11 Black Lamb. And we've also got Gary. He would love to be able to change his user ID, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's what he says. Yeah.
Gary, we know it's you.
All right. Well, welcome, Gary. Good seeing you. And let's see. Oh, we need to give a couple of shout outs to our Patreon members. We have Tabin R. and Hava H and Lisa B. But then we also have our brand new YouTube members that just recently joined. Diane Boss, Ghost Dragon ZW. We have Paula Faust, Girl in the Desert, and Lisa Bowden. So Lisa's a hardcore supporter. She's not only a YouTube member, she's also a Patreon member. And
I was going to say, give her a few minutes. She'll be here.
Yeah. And also, we need to give a special shout out to our t-shirt giveaway winners. So over the last couple of weeks, we had some t-shirts to give away. And those winners were Lisa Bowden, Girl in the Desert, Guy Merritt, and Mike J. And they always say, show us the pictures or it didn't happen. Well, okay, let's go ahead and show you some pictures here. Let's see. Here's Mike J's picture. He sent a picture of just his shirt, but it showed up. Looks good. And then let's see, who else do we have? oh, look at this guy. I wonder who this is.
That's the grumpy get off my lawn guy.
It's Guy Merritt. Absolutely. I think this is from Pine Knob at a ZZ Top concert.
Yep, he was at the concert.
Yeah. And then we have one of our newest members, Girl in the Desert.
Hey.
She's literally in the desert out in Arizona. And then Lisa, I think, made her son model this for everybody. So there's Lisa's shirt. So there we go. I think she said, throw this on and wear this for this picture. So
well, he's smiling. At least he's not sitting there with like a horrible grimace on his face.
Right. Like, Mom, why are you doing this to me?
Speaking of Guy Merritt, Guy is just logged on and joined us.
Hey, Guy. Yeah, did you see your picture, Guy? We put it up for you in your shirt. So
Mike, that's okay. You had the fence behind, so at least it's it wasn't here at the house, and you had greenery.
Yeah.
So
yeah, looked good. You know what? I think Mike was invisible in that shirt. I think that's what the thing was. So, all right, let's get going and dig into this so we can get Rob on. So tonight we are wrapping up our focus on MUFON. And by the way, if my voice is sounding kind of scratchy, it's because I've been teaching all week my science students, and they were very loud and rowdy this week, and so I had to be loud and rowdy. So my voice is a little chewed up right now. But MUFON is a civilian organization made up of volunteers that at their own expense seek knowledge of the UFO UAP phenomenon, and since 1969 has not only been active in the United States, but now around the world. Their goals are: 1, investigate UFO sightings and collect data in the MUFON database for use by researchers worldwide. 2, promote research on UFOs to discover the true nature of the phenomenon with an eye towards scientific breakthroughs and improving life on our planet. And 3, educate the public on the UFO phenomenon and its potential impact on society. So, Michelle, why don't you tell us a little bit about our guest before we bring him on?
Well, let's go into Rob's bio just a little bit to get a background. So Rob Swiatek received his undergraduate degree from Bloomsburg University in Pennsylvania, where he double majored in physics and earth science.
Earth science, that's what I teach.
Except for a brief time spent at NASA headquarters working on the CSAT satellite project, Swiatek's career was spent at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office in Virginia as a physics examiner. He worked for years in the class of aeronautics and astronautics, as well as other disparate classes. His interest in UFOs has spanned his life from the time he was a teenager to the present day. In 1976, he joined the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, and in 1986, when he was living in the Washington, D.C. area, he began his association with the Fund for UFO Research. Being part of the fund meant involvement in all aspects of ufology, from hot-button issues like Roswell and abductions to archival research and day-to-day UFO sightings. Rob is currently on the board of directors of both MUFON and the National UFO Historical Records Center in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
And that is our friend, David Marler, who got us actually in touch with Rob. So let's go ahead and bring on Rob Swiatek. Rob, welcome.
Good evening, Wayne and Michelle.
How's everything going on your end?
And I also spoke with Dave Moore.
Oh, a little bit of freezing up.
And so, yeah, here to discuss UFOs with you guys, as long as you want. 24 hours if you want. Thanks for all your viewers, too, for tuning in. Hope they're all MUFON members.
Yep. Oh, hey, and look at this. Right off the bat, we have our good friend Hellfire Studios jumping in with
thank you, Hellfire.
Thank God it's Friday, my fellow Michiganders. Thank you, Hellfire. We appreciate that, man. Thank you for helping out. that'll go toward paying our monthly fee of StreamYard. So, all right, Rob, let's go ahead and jump into this. And I know you've been asked this a million times, but why did you decide to get involved with the study of UFOs? Was there an event or an experience that made you seek out MUFON?
Well, I was actually interested in the subject before I joined MUFON, but for 6 or 7 years. But yeah, what really got me involved and prevalence of UFO sightings and newspaper reports, and the University of Colorado UFO study in the late '60s. Sorry, this dates me a little bit, but I thought it was tremendously exciting, and that they were looking into this phenomenon. I had done some reading on it. And realized it seemed to me something was going on. I was hoping these guys at Colorado would get to the bottom of it. They didn't. And I thought I'd have this mystery wrapped up in 10 or 15 years. But here it's years later, decades later, and we're still seeking to resolve it and remove any stigma from it, and move on to what might be why it's here and how they do it.
I'm kind of curious as to your involvement with David Marler and his UFO Historical Records Center in Albuquerque. How much are you involved with that, and what are you thinking about what's going on there?
Well, I can't. Dave is the executive director of the thing, and so most of the work that needs to be done occurs in the New Mexico area, where Dave meets with local politicians to try to get building and funding, and we weigh in on the board. I think there's 5 of us: Barry Greenwood and Rod Dyke and Jan Aldrich and Mark Rodiger, good friend, and we weigh in when some things need to be voted on for expenditures, or where the size of a building we might get or something like that. But we're really not quite at that point yet where we have the building we have the material in is Dave's house and on his property, but we're hoping to get literally an archival structure of some type that we can store all this stuff in and have people come and access it. So it's going to be more than a storage depot. It's going to be a place you can go in, like a research facility, and page through the stuff and get copies of things. And we want transparency on every level.
Yeah, I've seen on Facebook, like almost every other day, Dave is posting all the boxes of stuff that seem to show up, and he's gotten this person's material and this person. And Michelle and I were just recently on the Micah Hanks program, and were interviewed by him, and he's also very much involved with Dave. And we're talking to Dave about our experience, because we had a huge UFO sighting of a black triangle in 2018 right here in southeastern Michigan, right by Detroit Metro Airport, and it kind of kicked us on this journey of where we end up now, talking to all kinds of people about it. And it's something that we never expected to be involved in, especially Michelle as a English teacher, myself, I'm an earth and space science teacher. And so it kind of brings me to my next question is, how did you end up becoming a board member of MUFON? It seems like quite a path for you to go on as well.
Well, it was I was at every MUFON symposium before I was on the board. I would be helping the Fund for UFO Research, because that was the organization in the Washington, D.C. area, with Richard Hall and other renowned researchers here that went back to the 50s. So I got to know Walt Andrus fairly well, and John Schuster very well, and we worked with them on cooperative projects. For example, in 1995, we formed the UFO Research Coalition at the behest of Robert Bigelow, and we had a meeting out there, several meetings with Bob Bigelow, as board members of our respective organizations. We all came together. So we were really all knew one another very well. Richard Hall knew Schuster and Andrus, and I did, of course. And Mark Rodiger and Mike Swords were out there from the Center for UFO Studies. So eventually, when they needed board members, they had at least knew how nonprofits operate and know a little bit about UFOs. So, they contacted me. And what can I say? I joined, and I've been there about now 19 or 18 years.
Yeah, just I'm kind of giggling right now, and so is Michelle, because one of our watchers, Mike J, said you should keep that delay all the time. It sounds cool.
Hey, Wayne,
I don't know. It's kind of annoying on our end. It's like hearing this feedback, but if it sounds cool on your end, guys, awesome. So, all right. Okay, I got to ask you a little bit about your background at the patent office.
Yes, sir.
And I think I saw an interview with you where you talked about this a little bit, about the patents you would examine and some of the stuff you've seen come across your desk to approve. And was it true you were involved in looking at the aviation patents and things like that, and seen some pretty interesting things come across your desk?
Yeah, that's correct. That's a good way of putting it. Interesting things. Landing gear to ailerons to circular aircraft. So we had in the breakdown, there's a big schedule that everybody looks at to find out where you would search for something. It tells you what class to look for. If you're looking for an envelope or a shoe or whatever, you go to this schedule and it tells you what class shoes are in, or airplanes. And then they're all broken down. So in the whole schedule for the aircraft, there were 6 or 7 subclasses that were drawn to circular aircraft. And saucers, literally flying saucers. But these things were constructed according to principles of science and engineering that we on Earth understood by scientists and engineers who are humans. So they have to meet, writing up a patent application is a very involved and very explicit process. You have to follow certain rules and guidelines, but you set forth your invention, and then you look to find whether or not that circular aircraft that a person may have invented have maybe lifting fans, 6 lifting fans around in a circle with a jet engine mounted for horizontal thrust. Is that out there? Has somebody else done it? In short, that's what you would do. If somebody were to present an application and they said, I use anti-gravity to power this craft, I would have to reject that application because currentthe our science on Earth doesn't recognize anti-gravity propulsion units. I would have to say to the inventor, well, please provide me the explicit details of the anti-gravity propulsion unit on your craft, according to the principles that we can understand, and then you might get your patent. But we don't just buy everything. Let's put it that way in terms of what constitutes an invention.
Right. So there is kind of like the what do they call it? Like the truth test, the sniff test. I think that's right.
Yeah. And if I'm getting some audio dropouts, so if you don't hear me or something, it's due to the sinister government hybrids or something that are interfering. But it's not us. But no, basically, in short, a patent application has to be.
There's one.
Reading the application. If you read the application and you're an engineer and can understand it and can make it from the application, then that's what we ask for.
Okay.
And that doesn't, let me touch on briefly on the subject of secrecy in the patent office, because there are applications that get security top secret. There's no top secret in the patent office. There are secret and classified levels of applications, and those are also examined by a cadre of examiners in the office, just very few people in the secrecy area. And I worked on those as well. Again, they have to follow the same rules that the non-secret ones do. You have to present your application in such a way that somebody skilled in the art could make or reproduce it. And there is no such thing as a secret patent. They do not exist. It's a secret application. So if I were to get an application that was classified for some reason, I would work on it like a normal application. If I found that the inventor deserved a patent, they wouldn't. The subject matter of the application was redacted. The application would be allowed, put on a shelf somewhere, and there it would sit until the Department of Defense redacted the application. It might be 30 years. But the moment they redact they withdraw the secrecy classification, that application would be passed and become a patent, passed to issue, as we would say, and becomes a patent. So a patent per se is a public document by definition. It's the applications that are classified.
Okay, so one thing that I always take, what do I want to say, umbrage with, I guess, is Michelle and I see in that giant triangle and the stuff we went through when we got close to it and the after effects of it, especially with me, with my health and my thyroid going crazy. And what we saw, I get upset that I get told, well, that's the TR3B. I don't believe in the TR3B. But have you seen anything from your end on in the patent arena of the TR3B and the spinning of Mercury and all of this kind of stuff?
Well, if it's out there in the unclassified area, I have not seen it.
Okay.
If now, just because something is a secret to the Department of Defense or to the military or to an individual, something they're working on, not everybody applies for a patent. So there could be devices out there that are flying around that, for whatever reason, someone never applied for a patent for it.
So now you can start thinking about like private builders and companies and things like that might be working behind the scenes to create some of these things that nobody really truly knows about.
That could certainly be the case, yes.
Okay.
I mean, really, a patent is for the free enterprise system. People getting patents in order to protect their invention for a limited amount of time from infringers so they can make and produce it. It doesn't help if your application is classified for 30 years when you might not even outlive the secrecy restriction. So the people who invent these things that might be classified do not like it when they get classified. They want them out there in the marketplace. But that's just how it goes. Some things are classified.
Yeah, our friend of the podcast right here just said, if the TR3B existed, I don't think there would be a patent.
That is correct. This patent they talk about here, and I don't mean to talk about these for an hour here, but because I don't want to bore everybody, but we've all heard of this PAIS, P-A-I-S is the inventor's name of a patent that came out from the Navy back in, I think it was at the end of 2017, something like that. That was after I had retired from the patent office, so I did not work on that one. But that patent was not classified. It was went through the normal unclassified process. The patent examiner, whom I know, thought it was allowable, and there the patent is. And I would just say, with regard to the PAIS patent, that if it were capable of doing the things that the patent alleges, China or Russia or any adversary of the U.S. could build that thing and seemingly dominate the world, because the patent application on and apparently fly faster than the speed of light or at tremendous velocities and goes through the water as easily as it can go through the air. And I won't comment on as to whether this specification enables that thing to be built. It should, because that's what a patent application has to do, enable you to build it if you wanted to. But I will tell you, if the Chinese could build this patent of PAIS's and it operated like PAIS asserts it does, we'd all be in trouble. We'd all be speaking Mandarin Chinese or something like that.
Right.
So, Rob, what are some of the most interesting cases that you've investigated and some of the best evidence that you have seen?
Well, I'm sort of not an investigator in the sense of doing field investigations, because there's only so much time in your life. But I am familiar with many sightings in the MUFON system and the historical sightings that go back for now 70 years. For example, the Kenneth Arnold sighting, the very one that instituted the beginning of the age of UFOs back in 1947, I think is an excellent sighting by all kinds of researchers, and it can't be explained. And Arnold was a great witness, an airplane pilot, of course. And we move through the years. We talk about the Socorro case and the Nash Fortenberry case in 1952. You don't hear a lot about these cases now. Delphos, all these cases through the years that have gotten extensive investigations, and nobody can explain what these things are. Even the University of Colorado couldn't explain 30% of the sightings that they investigated, and threw up their hands. Those are the kind of sightings that I really enjoy and like, and they still continue to come through the portals of MUFON and the National UFO Research Center, and the Center for UFO Studies gets some. They just don't get the publicity in newspapers and the media that they got, say, if they had occurred in 1961 or 1955 or 1970. Individual cases from citizens anymore just don't seem to be profiled too often.
You know, I want to jump back to that pious patent thing you were talking about.
Sure.
Isn't one of the things, the Navy is kind of attached to that, isn't it? Isn't that like one?
Yes,
like
the Navy.
the spotlight.
Pius worked for the Navy. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what it is. So do you think they had something to do with him being able to get that patent approved?
Well, I've looked through the file on that case, which is public. Anybody can do it. It's not limited to former patent examiners or present patent examiners only. Anybody can look at the file online. And now they went through the regular process, and when they got rejected, as almost everybody gets rejected the first one or two times you file your claims, they came back with some amendments, and the patent office finally relented and said, okay, they bought the arguments of the patent attorney who worked for the Navy, and they allowed the patent application, just like any other application that we worked on.
Okay.
You're either convinced by the arguments of the patent prosecution as an examiner, or you're not. If you're not, the applicant can appeal to the Patent Office Board of Appeals, and the case can make it to the Supreme Court. So they threatened to go to the Board of Appeals, but they did not, and they convinced the examiner that their invention, the claims, you read the claims at the end of a patent, that's what defines the invention, that those claims were allowable, and Mr. Bonzell allowed it.
Okay. Well, I want to dig into some of the more recent dirt that's been going on and get your thoughts on it, and with all of your experience with MUFON, and just get your overall sense personally, and also what you think of the MUFON as an organization thinks about these things. So I put a little bit of a timeline together, and there really seems to be a fight within the government when it comes to UFOs and disclosure. It seems there's one group that wants to continue to deny the existence of UFOs, one group that wants to know what's going on with the phenomenon, and then we have the whistleblowers and witnesses that are starting to come forward. So, for instance, I was going through a real hard time with the Grusch article that came out on the debrief, and I was trying to make sense of everything. So this is what I ended up doing. I figured out why I was having this disconnect going on in my head, because there was a NASA article on May 31st of this year in the AP, and it had Dan Evans coming out and saying this, and I got the quotes here. It says, NASA talks UFOs with public ahead of the final report on identified flying objects, AP News. And it says, he says, I want to emphasize this loud and proud. There's absolutely no convincing evidence for extraterrestrial life associated with it. unidentified objects. NASA, Dan Evans said after the meeting that they did. Then just a few days later, on January 5th, the Grusch article comes out on the debrief. And then just 2 days later, the Pentagon AARO comes out and says the following: to date, AARO has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate the claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently. And that was, I think, her first name is Susan Go.
Susan Gough, yeah, or something.
Gough?
Like
Okay.
Gough, I think she spelled
Yeah.
it.
Yep. So that really messed with me until I saw the three witnesses in the subcommittee recently, Grusch, Fravor, and Graves. And I totally switched my position on Grusch, that I believe that he was told what he told to the subcommittee to be true, that he believes it to be true as he was interviewing these people. What is your personal stance on this and everything that's going on? What do you know? And then how does MUFON deal with something like that as an organization?
Well, we sort of deal with it like everybody else. Most of us in MUFON do not have a pipeline right to the any of the congressmen or congressional aides or senators. Dave McDonald does, because he is meeting with Congress, as he has set forth in his direct. I don't know what transpires during those meetings, but again, what the congressmen think and what the DoD thinks are two different things. The congressional members can be completely convinced there's something to UFOs, and some of them are, and the DoD people are going to say whatever they want to say and not release any information, not release information they don't want to release. That's as simple as it is. I guess I can't add anything else to that other than to say that this is one of the reasons we need civilian investigation of the UFO phenomenon. The government has the perfect right to investigate these things for our national safety and security, but don't expect we're necessarily going to get information out we can work with from a scientific point of view. We need to have civilian scientists and engineers working on this subject. We've needed it that way for 70 years. And where there are no, where clarity prevails, and articles are written up in refereed journals, and science is allowed to proceed as it proceeds for several hundred years to figure out what the facts and the true nature of this phenomenon is. We're just not going to get it from the DoD until they're ready to give it to us. And I'm irritated at that, but what can you do?
Right. I mean, that's just it. We're kind of sitting there with our hands up in the air, like, and see, this is where I have a problem when we've talked with Stephen Bassett. I love the guy. He's passionate. He's like, it's time to end the information embargo. Come on, government, release everything. But we kind of went back and forth a little bit, because I believe that any big breakthroughs in knowledge that comes forward is going to come from the civilian side, and he thinks it's going to come from the government side. So I'm taking you kind of side with me on that as a member of MUFON. You probably feel the same way.
Yeah, well, yeah, I do. I would think that. 2 points, I guess. Point number one might be that the government doesn't know anything than you and I know about this phenomenon. Despite all this all the secrecy and everything else, they don't really know how these, where I tend to fall down on that one, fall into place on that belief. And a belief is what it is. I think if they had really reduced to practice some of these objects and the incredible manner of flights that they have, right angle turns at very high speeds, hypersonic speeds, vanishing in place sometimes, we wouldn't be throwing billions of dollars on hypersonic missiles now that operate with scramjet and ramjet technology that is well known to scientists and engineers in this country. Why throw that kind of money around when you can, again, I'll use the phrase, dominate the world with the technology that you have recovered from the UFOs? And we're not doing that. And so I'm just mystified by that. I'm not sure they know anything really about how these things work, or they haven't reduced it to practice. They haven't been able to figure out whatever they might have.
Yeah, that's always been my point, has been if we had this and we were building these TR-3Bs or these Tic Tacs where we could just push a button in 6 seconds, be, 60 miles away. I mean, you put a nuke on one of those and there's no way you can stop it. And you could drop it right in the middle of Moscow, or they could drop it right in the middle of Washington, D.C., so
absolutely.
We've always used the best weapons that we've ever had. And for somebody to be sitting on it and not using it, I find a hard time believing that. And I think one of our longtime friends and guest that's been on our show a couple times, Guy Merritt, he always says the same exact thing. We would definitely be using it, and because he had a triangular experience here in Michigan as well back in '94. So anyways,
I think you're onto something there. And another thing that's not brought out too frequently here in recent reporting from 2017 is the fact that the exact same conclusions that AARO reached in its reports, you could lift their terminology verbatim from classified documents from the 1940s that have come out through FOIA. These things were acting the same way in 1947 and 1948 as they're described now. Right angle turns, spheres that just fly through the sky with no apparent means of propulsion that can't be explained. Hypersonic speeds, the maneuvering around every type of aircraft this nation has had since 1947, all the different generations of jet aircraft. UFOs just have games with them. Play with them like you're playing with your cat. They fly circles around our most advanced technology. It's always been that way, or at least been that way for 70 years. And when NASA comes out and they say, we don't see anything there that could be non-human or extraterrestrial. Well, do you know the history of the subject? Have you looked at any of the cases? The great cases that can't be explained? Not every case is by a pilot seen at 30,000 feet, 5 miles away. Many sightings, like yours, Wayne, are seen close up, sometimes right over a witness's car, where the person is terrified. And there's hundreds of cases like that. And these are the things that have to start being acknowledged and actually studied. I'm tired of hearing, we can explain most cases, but we can't explain 20%. UFO
that
field.
20% is pretty big.
Or 3% or whatever it is, but we know that. You don't have to tell us. Most things can be explained. We're interested in the core, what remains after the chaff is removed of UFO sightings. And it's about time, if NASA's going to do this some kind of a study, then do it, and do it without the security restrictions, and just call a spade a spade. If you can't explain the damn thing, then just say that. We don't know where it is. We don't know how it operates, but there's a real phenomenon here. And maybe we'll get that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that reminds me of the 1966 swamp gas thing that went on here in Michigan. Those pilots that were sent to intercept those craft that they saw said the same exact thing, that they zipped around, made right angle turns, and they could just zoom off and so fast that they disappeared. So this has been going on for quite a while. I mean, you're absolutely right on that.
And it's a characteristic of the UFO phenomenon. And when either a NASA panel or a group of scientists says, well, we don't see any consistency in UFO reports. Okay, maybe you don't see consistency in the kind of types that have been reported now for 70 years. You sure do see consistency in the manner that these things operate in, the darting around, the vertical flight to go from in front of you to 3 miles away in a second, like in Damon, Texas in 1965. It's really remarkable. Those things have stayed the same. So the phenomenon does have characteristics, and they can be ascertained after you investigate cases and, again, remove the chaff, as I say, or keep the warheads and do away with the dummies, that type thing.
I always like to say it's like searching for a needle in a stack of needles. But Guy says something interesting here. He says, I struggle to believe the government really doesn't know these things exist. Seems implausible in the extreme, if I follow this correctly. But we got to be careful, or who are we calling the government, right? Because there are those lifetime contractors or military people that are working. I guess they consider them the underground government, the shadow government, or something like that. That are there always.
And stuff.
Subcontractors, yeah.
Well, yeah, that is certainly true. I think that I can't think that it's not happening, that the government does. The government, the military, say, acknowledges that there is a phenomenon here, but it completely stymies them, and it's aggravating and mystifying to them, and it's kind of hard to admit that a military and a technology such as this country hasn't made any progress in explaining these things. So best to sweep them away and not think about them, because they don't seem to be taking us over. Sweep it under the rug and let's go on with life, that type thing.
And Guy says something I completely agree with. I am pretty suspicious of NASA. Have you any dealings of looking into NASA and them?
Could you repeat that question there, Wayne? It dropped out a little bit on the sound.
Guy said, and I agreed with him, that I'm pretty suspicious of NASA. What's your thoughts on that and this NASA UAP? When I saw the latest live stream that they did talking about this, they seemed very confrontational, just very negative about it.
Well, at least they acknowledge that there's something there to be studied. I think that, to put it kindly, the 16 members of that panel, maybe make one exception, are complete naifs and naive as to the UFO subject. I don't think they have done people, but they have not looked at cases. They have not done reviewed the literature of the UFO field, but they're all just shooting from the hip. And the report says over and over and over again, ad nauseum, we need censors to look at this. We need a whole of government approach. Blah, blah, blah. I know that. It doesn't take 34 pages to tell me over and over again that we need censors. Of course we do. But we have good eyewitness testimony too. And that's another part of the equation. We convict people every week in this country based on eyewitness testimony and no physical evidence. The same thing can occur in science. You can resolve the metes and bounds of some phenomena, at least get started from eyewitness testimony. And we have many, many decades and years of it, and thousands of cases in the MUFON CMS system if they want some good cases to start from. Yet they don't even acknowledge that. They don't even give lip service to the fact practically that civilians are seeing UFOs dozens of times every day in this country. And they have a lot of homework and a lot of work to do to catch up. And they don't have anybody who was involved with the UFO field on the panel. They didn't have anyone. Where was Mark Roediger, for example? Maybe they should have contacted him, or Dave Marner, somebody like that, who knows the subject inside. No.
Yeah,
none of them know.
I agree. And since we're talking about this, and you have your background in earth science, and as do I, as I am a science teacher myself of earth and space science, so That's kind of funny that we both have that same kind of background. But I keep on coming back to the idea that our scientific method may not be what it will take to study something that doesn't want to be studied. I was being interviewed on another show, and it kind of just occurred to me in my mind of how do you study something that seems intelligent and doesn't want to be studied? So, can you tell us about some of the new things that MUFON may be doing or technology that is being employed to collect new UFO, UAP data at all?
Well, we don't really have. I can't say we have we have enhanced the capabilities of the MUFON lab for investigating physical traces. We've come out with a phone app so that people who subscribe to this app can put the details of their sightings in immediately and file a report, this type thing. But the kind of technology you need, we can't afford. We do need sensors. I can't deny that. But the study of these reports out to more than just the 400 or 500 investigators in MUFON, you want to get them out, at least the cases out, to the scientific community somehow so that they can really dig into the subject with respect to very small details that maybe nobody didn't realize. Or like Avi Loeb, set up a sensor arrangement and try to get it in a location where sightings are occurring so you can pick up the kind of data that NASA says they can do with their instruments. And maybe NASA will come up with the sensors. It costs millions of dollars, but they'll have the budget and can develop these things, and we'll get the tangible kind of data that science wants. But the subject is not beyond the scientific method. It's just going to require a little different approach to it. And certainly over the 70 years of mostly civilian investigation of UFOs, we have gotten hard evidence. We have gotten trace samples that resist explanation. We have gotten photographs that resist explanation and radar tracks. And you can work with those. And once we come up with a conclusion that we can all live with, and in my opinion, in my belief, that's the explanation of UFOs. It's a non-human intelligence, but that's as far as I can go. But if we were all on that same page, then we can take the next steps and say, okay, where are they from? How are they powering these things? How are they moving them? Why are they here? But we're not at that stage yet. We're still at the same damn stage we've been at for so many years. We've got to get a consensus amongst scientists and academicians and intelligent people in this country and in the world, because it's a worldwide phenomenon, that we're dealing with something that is, at this point, seems to be beyond our human technology.
Now, speaking of sensors and NASA and all that, has there ever been any contact or a liaison made with Space Force? We had Matt Lohmeyer on, and he was a former commander of a Space Force base, and he was hinting at some of the sensors that they have that are pointing back at Earth, but they could also, and he didn't say, and he wouldn't say because it's classified, about moving them around and having them look outward as well. But has there been any contact or anything made with Space Force and being able to do some kind of exchange of information or using some of their sensors?
Not to my knowledge from an official point of view. Now, here's an interesting thing. Earlier this year or late last year, I kind of forget the date now, my wife, who is the head of Virginia MUFON, had a high official of the Space Force that we know speak before her MUFON group on a Saturday in a restaurant, or maybe it was a Sunday group of people there. And he came there and he said, oh yeah, I'll give you a PowerPoint presentation. We'll talk about it. He flatly ruled out speaking about UFOs. Wouldn't say practically anything about them. And I see this fellow every once in a while because he's a member of the church I go to. And he told me he's a good friend of Sean Kirkpatrick, who is the head of AARO. And I gave him some I said, oh, his name's Joe. I said, Joe, here's some documents that have been released from the government years and years ago. It used to be top secret documents explaining that they can't explain UFOs from the 1940s. Can you see that these get to Sean Kirkpatrick? He said, I will give them to him. I don't think Sean Kirkpatrick was ever aware of these things. But to get back to your question, the Space Force does have the sensors that it probably could use to either face inward toward the Earth to look at hostile activity, possible hostile activity against the U.S., or outward for objects, satellites, for example, that could be in higher orbits than the satellite with the sensors. And I've read some reports in Aviation Week lately saying that the Space Force is looking for objects that can't be explained, but it was in the context of human-made objects that can't be explained, like anti-satellite satellites, this type thing. But it's inevitable that the Space Force is going to be brought into this. Our friend who spoke said, oh, we just relay these things on, if we can't explain them, they just go to AARO. I give them to Sean. Well, I think it's a little more complicated than that. And I think, like it or not, the Space Force is going to have to deal with these things.
Yeah.
Just like NORAD had to.
Yeah. Yep. I totally agree. All right. So everybody, we are joined once again with Rob Swiatek. He is a board member of MUFON, as we are wrapping up our monthly focus on MUFON. And before we take a break and we come back, can I get your take on the alien mummies that have shown up in Mexico? And seems they were taken from Peru, and the Peruvian government's not too happy about that.
You know, I don't know a whole lot about that because I tend to think it's much ado about nothing. And from the little bit I've heard and read, but this kind of story has percolated through the UFO field now for a long time, maybe 10, 20 years of these small creatures being found mummified. And I just don't think there's there might be a species we don't recognize. They're desiccated, they're mummified, but I just don't put much credence in it.
Yeah, they've been famous
Sounds too good to
for
be true. It is.
Yeah, exactly. And just want to acknowledge here before we jump on break, Dorothy Hawkins. She says for $2. She says, "Sweet, Rob Swiatek from MUFON. Very cool. Thanks." Thank you, Dorothy. So I take it she probably saw you somewhere else before.
Once in a while, I've seen something.
Yeah. I did see that you were recently on News Nation.
Yes, I was right in the wake of the Grusch stuff there. Yeah.
About the hearings, yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting experience.
Well, you know what? I say we're going to go ahead and let's take a break. Let's do about 4 or 5 minutes and we'll jump back. I got a couple other questions that I want to ask, and then we'll see if we can get some questions from our audience. Rob, are you up to that for maybe another half hour or so?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's
awesome.
do it.
Okay, great. All right, Rob, I'm going to send you to the back.
Right.
All right, everybody. Hey, Michelle.
I don't know. Guy brought up that interesting case in Vegas. Might be interesting to get Rob's input on that one.
Thanks for bringing that up, Guy. Absolutely. We gotta bring that up, that Las Vegas case. Now, I've seen the interview with the family. They're not kidding. They are serious about what they saw. So we can bring that up with Rob when we come back. Everybody, thank you once again for joining us on this awesome Friday night with Rob Swiatek. He is a UFO researcher and on the MUFON board of directors. And you've probably seen him on a ton of stuff. I started doing some looking around. And I saw he was on Larry King Live before. Was recently on News Nation with all the Grusch stuff that was coming out. I mean, this is the guy. So if you have some kind of questions you want to ask, this would be a perfect time as we wrap up our focus on MUFON.
And the questions in the chat that have nothing to do with UFOs are the lions for real right now. Time will tell on that one. So
yeah, who could have? There is some paranormal and some alien activity going on when it comes to the Detroit Lions. Okay, if you need any more evidence, that's it. So, all right, Michelle, why don't we get out of here and go jump on a break for a few minutes?
It might be time to get out my apparel for the Lions again.
Well, it might be time for another coffee. I know my voice could use
yes.
it. All right, everybody, we'll be right back. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. See you in 4.
Traveling near New Boston, Michigan? Hungry? Well then, you need to check out New Boston Coney and Grill tucked away at 37005 Huron River Drive. With daily specials, homemade soups and desserts, and a staff that makes you feel like family, you will not be disappointed. Give them a try for dine-in or carry-out at 734-606-5313. You can find their page, including their menu, on Facebook. Bon appetit.
Three minutes left, everybody. Just 3 minutes. Two minutes left, everybody. Get ready. 2 minutes. One more minute and we are back. One more minute. All right, everybody, we're back. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us once again here on the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters Podcast Live Edition. And we're joined tonight by Rob Swiatek from MUFON. And we're going to get into a couple more pre-prepared kind of questions that we had for him. And then we're going to turn it over to our buddies and lovely ladies and gentlemen in chat that want to ask some questions of Rob and MUFON. And what a great night. I'm telling you guys, outside of the technical little bit of issues we're having, it's been fantastic having you guys here with us. Dorothy, once again, thank you for your super chat. That was awesome. And at the beginning, we had Hellfire. Thank you once again, man, for your support. We truly appreciate it. And let's see, who do we got with us in chat now? Barry has joined us.
Barry's joined.
Hey, Barry, great seeing you. Welcome. Let's see. Where's Michelle? There's Michelle.
Yeah, I felt like the disembodied voice again.
Yeah. Well, you had to get that coffee made.
Oh, yes.
I think the changing of this weather is also starting to really, get on my voice too, on top of using it all the time. So, it gets to be kind of a pain.
Well, it got cold. It's been getting warm again. The rain.
Yep.
So, pure Michigan.
Yep. All right. I think we're going to bring Rob back on. Let's go ahead and get our guest for the night. All right. There we are. Rob, how's it going, man?
Good to be back.
All right. Good having you back. So, Las Vegas UFOs. What do you make of that?
Well, there's a little sound drop out here, but let me just say that I'm not an expert on that case. But it does seem that the persistence of the witnesses and what they had to say hasn't changed too much from the beginning of the sighting to now. They're not backing down. I think they were originally, somebody said it was a meteor or something like that. I'm prepared to believe some strange things are happening out there in Vegas, and it has nothing to do with gambling.
That's fair.
And other things.
Yeah. I think one of the things that might have muddied the waters was that when people were starting to dissect the video and trying to find the aliens in the, in the one screenshot, and it's like, is it pareidolia? Is it, it just seemed to muddy the waters. And for me personally, that kind of turned me away from that case, because obviously, to me, as an earth scientist and a astronomy guy, I saw that bullide. To me, that's just a meteor coming in and exploding. They tracked it on radar. I don't believe that was a craft. Now, could there be at the same time something going on with some type of creatures or something running around there from an actual craft? Absolutely. So
you raise a good point there, Wayne. Sorry to interrupt you just for 1 second. There have been articles written about UFO sightings, unknown UFO sightings here. I'm talking about not explained ones that occur during meteor showers or meteoric events. It's not the first time something like this has happened and been commented upon. I'm talking about going back a number of decades now that these articles were written about the strange, you'll see a large meteor enter the atmosphere, and by God, there's some seemingly genuine UFO cases occurring almost the exact same time. Don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, and Dorothy brings up something very interesting here. And this is another thing I think that helped muddy the waters, and it kind of turned me away a little bit too, is that Dorothy says, I found the timing of the sightings right around the hearing and disclosure 2.0 by Greer seems suspect in her opinion. What do you make of the Greer stuff?
Well, I'm not a big fan of Stephen. He jumps first and sort of asks questions later. He's 10 steps further down the ladder than I am as to what's going on with regard to UFO, the UFO phenomenon. I'm sort of on the first step of the ladder, and I admit I don't know most of what's happening. I know cases a little bit, but I don't know what's going on. Stephen and others seemingly do, at least in his estimation, and maybe he does. I'm not going to say that he doesn't, but nonetheless, that over the years, Stephen and I and our organizations just haven't had a good relationship, and yeah, we could talk a long time about Greer's involvement in the UFO field. And there's some good things and some not so good things, but nonetheless, I just can't support a lot of what he says.
Yeah, Greer. I guess Guy says it here that he basically Greer annoys him. It's like for me, it's the Wilson document things. That's where, because I've done some digging into that, and I know Richard Dolan's on that, really on that in the MJ12 materials and things. And like I said, my wife and I just got into this stuff as, we're teachers, but what brought us into this was experience sighting right over the road we were driving, and we started asking people if they saw anything else, and next thing we know, we have a 6,000 member Facebook group, and I'm like, maybe we can help people out by talking about this and making a podcast and bringing on people, and it's been nonstop ever since, and it's been an amazing ride. So I was digging into the Greer's background in this Wilson document stuff, and it seems like it's just not what it's supposed to be. But then Dolan's all over it, and he's like 100% on board. So I don't know. Greer strikes me as the kind of guy that says, I know what's going on. This is the way it is. Believe me or else. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're on the right track there. I think all you really need to do with respect to Greer is just read that the Outsider magazine, whatever it's called. The article on him, it came out in 1997 or something like that, before the turn of the century.
Okay.
And that he's taking people out to see and UFOs, and some people are going to be the first people to board the craft, and others are going to hang back, and he's going to have boarding leaders and all this. These things, and oh yeah, then they see something. He knows they're going to appear. It's just, again, I don't buy the contactees, the old time contactees. Maybe some of them had some kind of a weird psychological experience, but I stay away from that. And Greer, the same thing. There's too much non-questionable stuff to look at. You don't have to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Dorothy says, for my part, Disclosure 1.0 in 2001 was enough for me to, quote unquote, believe in Greer. And I think he might have been a little bit more, that was when he did the National Press Club thing, right? With all of those witnesses and stuff.
Right.
See, that to me, that's not believing Greer. That's believing the eyewitnesses that he brought forward.
Oh, absolutely. He does get and has gotten some people, good witnesses, to appear at press conferences with him. That's beyond a doubt.
Yeah. So you can't throw out the baby with the bathwater, but you don't need to listen to the baby to see if the bathwater is clean.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, let's see. Where do I want to go with this? This is one of my new favorite subjects I'm starting to dig into a little bit. MUFON's stance on USOs, unidentified submerged objects. And for people that don't know what that may be, most of people on this show is going to know. But these are usually picked up by like Navy submarines or surface ships. They're sonars. They actually have a classification for them. They call them fast movers. And they move at incredible speed, like hundreds of miles per hour under the water, which rivals like any kind of technology, foreign or domestic, that we know of. Has MUFON investigated anything similar to that? I know they're transmedium. They come out of the water, go in the water.
We have MUFON has a dive team. Sorry if I cut you off there. I had a little sound drop there.
No, perfect.
I have to sort of try to. When is he going to come back? And I can. But to my knowledge, the dive team, scuba divers, has never operated or investigated a case, operated in an environment where a case like that occurred, where something was moving at a terrific speed under the water. They're sort of prepared to go down and maybe maybe saw something fall off a UFO into a pond or a lake, and they could go down there and get that. Or they may say they saw a UFO go in a lake and Debbie Ziegelmeyer and her team of divers can go down there and see if if the UFO is still there. But no, to my knowledge, the MUFON has never. They get very few cases where the dive team has to be sent into action. I guess they don't slide down a pole, but you know what I mean. And but this is something more in the purview of the Navy and people who are actually in the nuclear submarines and operating in that environment. They've been going on for years. A guy named Carl Feit wrote a book about it, I think called Underwater UFOs or something like that, a number of years ago. And he has managed to document an awful lot of cases, hundreds of cases that occurred in the water or under the water, entering the water or coming out of the water, this type thing.
Now, has MUFON been able to corroborate or correlate any data between these sightings and nuclear power, like nuclear subs, nuclear carriers, nuclear power plants? Like there being more sightings, nuclear missile bases, things like that than
Yeah, I don't recall if there are any sightings in the MUFON CMS database that directly concern that were filed, say, by some of these pilots like Fravor or Graves. We certainly have an awful lot of sightings from civilian pilots over the years and airline pilots and private pilots, and there are, I guess, a few military sightings in there, but they tend to be kind of rare. They don't show up often. Though we do and have gotten some pretty good cases from people on airplanes taking either videos or still shots of stuff they see out the windows. In some cases, it's the pilot. Other cases, of course, it's the passengers. And these are, a couple of them are quite puzzling and really deserve to be brought before not only the NASA subcommittee, if they would look at them, but before AARO as well. One case that occurred in over Texas and I think it was October 2021, 2 years ago now. A woman photographed a discoidal object with a contrail behind it. A woman who was apparently a high-ranking military official, and she was flying as a civilian. And she filed this on this MUFON case management system. The picture is excellent. It needs to be brought to a wider audience. What did this woman photograph? It doesn't look like a conventional flying object of, flying aircraft to me, a man-made device.
Yeah. Sure.
That's about as good as we can get, with these kind of things for our civilian
Well, my guess is that it would probably be classified anyways. We wouldn't know.
Yeah, they just don't. They just don't. We don't get too many people sharing military sightings with us. I wish we did. It's hard enough to just get the civilian guys to do it.
Yep.
Well, Rob, thinking about something that we had just watched because it just released within the last few days, Netflix recently released the new docuseries called Encounters. And although we haven't finished it, we've gotten through the 3 out of the 4 episodes. I'm curious if MUFON was involved in some way with that mini-series and if you've watched it.
No, I've not seen the Encounter series. I don't watch a whole lot of things on TV. Man, my time's taken up with so much other stuff that I can't watch the programs. I don't think cooperated or was asked to be part of the Encounter series. It certainly wasn't a matter that came before the board. So I would say that probably we have not. Of course, we do have we take a great interest in close encounter type cases where a person claims to be abducted, this type thing at MUFON, and we've taken those cases seriously for many years now, and we continue to do that.
Are you familiar with the 1994 Michigan UFO flap on the west side of Michigan?
Was this the one that involved radar and radar pickups?
Yes, that's the one that involved Jack Bishong, who was a meteorologist at the time out of Muskegon.
Sure. Yeah, I can't give you the specifics of it. I'd have to look that up. But yes, I am familiar with the vague outlines of it.
I was going to say, I wondered what your thoughts were, because that was at the same time in March of '94 that there were over 300 sightings that were reported, and that was just the west side of the state.
Well, I've never heard from people who have investigated that case and looked closely into it, and the reading I've done. It seems to me it's a very puzzling case, series of cases. I know Mike Swords, who lives in Kalamazoo, Michigan, did at least one or more articles on those sightings for the International UFO Reporter, I believe. That was Kufos's house publication, and was convinced something very odd was going on there, and that these people were, had picked up something on radar and couldn't explain. It often happens during the 52 sightings, where a great avalanche of cases also includes with it radar cases. So this isn't at all unusual in the UFO field.
I'm being attacked by an alien right now, if people are wondering.
Oh, jeez.
This giant thing just jumped up on my lap, and he's not little.
It's a non-human life form.
Yeah, he's definitely non-intelligent too.
We have an intelligent one around here somewhere, but she hasn't shown
right.
up.
Right. So if he doesn't leave me alone when I'm home.
That's kind of neat.
But okay, so I asked our audience if they had any questions that they wanted to ask, and to put them in chat here. Let's see. I have here we go. Rick Davis asked earlier. He said, "Why wouldn't MUFON try to be a part of the Sky 360 endeavor? If you're looking for evidence, then get involved directly and not just use the reports of people." I only know a little bit about Sky 360. Rob, can you elaborate on that?
I probably could. I can't elaborate much more on that.
Okay.
Avi Loeb and his team is also doing the same thing with sensors, and MUFON is all for that. And if they reach out to us and get involved with it, if we can, that's all I can say. Yeah, and we would. We're not holding ourselves back, and would like to see more. Please contact us and Dave or anybody in MUFON, and we'll work with you if we can.
I think people have a perception of MUFON being a gigantic organization with a huge amount of funds and like operating like a government, and these are just normal people in the, that are interested or had an experience that drew them into this. They're not have a huge amount of resources like Space Force and things like that. Rob, if you want to speak to that.
Right. It's again, I had a sound drop out there. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure when you had ended. When you have an organization that's over 500 people, it does become more bureaucratic. What can I say? Forms are developed that are to be used on the CMS system. Investigators are told how to question people, or taught how to question people to do things, and it does get very organizational. And we have breakdowns. People do one job, other people do another job, and it becomes a small government. What can I say? That's just the way it works when you get a whole lot of humans working together. When I was with the Fund for UFO Research, one of the things that Richard Hall and Bruce Maccabee and Don Berliner wanted when they started the fund was for it to not be a membership organization, an organization that was going to raise funds and disseminate them for scientific research, which it did very well. But they just felt, having been part of NICAP, that we can operate in a different way if we were a non-membership organization. So there's something to be said for both organizations. We need a MUFON type organization. If it's not MUFON, it'll be MUFON by another acronym that's investigating sightings. We need sightings to continue to be looked at and investigated. And yes, do we have some warts and faults? Yes, we do, but any large organization does.
So we have a question, Rob, from Dorothy, and she missed the beginning of the show. She's not sure if you already answered this, but she said, how many reports has MUFON collected from witnesses over the years, and what percentage are unexplainable?
That's an excellent question. I'm prepared sort of for that. Well, let me just give you a little. I have the 2023 figures right here at hand for you. In brief, just for January through February of this year, 2023. Excuse me, not January through February. January through August, we have. Where is my paper there on that? I thought it was better organized on this than I am. Here it is, right in front of me. We've had, well, about 3,069 cases as of early September when I tabulated these things. So January through August of 2023, 3,069 cases, 4 comes out to about a 14.6, almost a 15% unknown rate.
Rob, could you go over those numbers one more time? You dropped out right when you were getting into those.
Absolutely. The number of events that MUFON has gotten as of September 9th, 2023, in this year is 3,069, 3,070 about, and 447 of those were unknown. So it correlates to about a 15% unknown rate. That's about the average for MUFON over the years here. Let's see if I can pull something up on my computer.
That's
yeah,
a pretty high
I can go
rate.
back to any year, but every year, for example, in 2020 we had 6,200 sightings. In 2021 we had 5,600 sightings. In 2018 we had 6,047 sightings from both the U.S. and from international countries. So yeah, we continue to hover around the 5,000 to 6,000 numbers of events through these years. The unknown rates have varied through the years a little bit. 2016 was about a 30% unknown rate. 2018, 28.9 unknown rate. 2020, 23.2, and 2021 had a 24.9% unknown rate with 1,157 unknowns. Yeah, I've got the figures here for all these things that I do go through and tabulate.
Yeah,
And,
those numbers
I
are
can
kind
give
of
shapes.
they're blowing away the people in the chat right now.
I mean, there are. It's a rule of thumb is between 3,000 and 4,000 cases each year, with around a 15-16% unknown rate at this particular time, and from both international and add international, and that number goes up a little bit. Most of these numbers I tabulated with just a lot of them are U.S. numbers only, but it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, and Guy brings up a point too that we could probably touch on for a minute. He says, I'm kind of past the quote, maybe people get abducted stuff. Personally, just my own bias. And they're kind of having a discussion about people that they know and that say they've been abducted. And Guy's pretty much convinced of the people that he knew that were abducted. What is MUFON's stance and investigation into the number of abduction cases?
You touch on a kind of a sore subject there. MUFON has something called the Experiencer Resource Team. The acronym is ERT. Let's set these papers aside here. They look into abductions and the accounts thereof. They do not release how many numbers they have. So I cannot tell you how many cases ERT works on each year, how many cases they have worked on in past years, or what the sequence of events are that now comprise an abduction. And this is kind of a sore point with me because I would like to know that. Back around the turn of this century, we had Bud Hopkins and Dave Jacobs, two prominent researchers who were very good cases, and what types of cases that you had, what the experiences were that the witnesses reported, and how many cases they worked on. But there has been a drop off in the terms of the numbers of those kinds of researchers, and there aren't too many prominent abduction researchers now that are going public with their cases, and that includes the people who comprise the ERT. So I wish I could be a little more explicit on the abduction cases, but I can't. All I can say is that when Dr. Eddie Bullard looked into all the cases that he knew of back in 1987, he could find in the literature that were public of abduction cases, and he analyzed them in a telephone book size publication. He found an internal consistency that went beyond just randomness in this types of events and when those events occurred during an abduction. But that was 1987. And I would like to know if those series of incidents still occur, and do they still occur in that particular sequence that Eddie Bullard found, because it was very mystifying and very odd. That's all I can say.
Is there a reason why the ERT is not sharing their data at all?
Yes, there is a reason. They see themselves, and again, this is Rob Swiatek speaking. This is not, I'm not going to pretend to speak for the MUFON board or the organization itself.
Absolutely.
Because I can't. But what I have seen in things is that they see themselves as caregivers, which they are to a certain extent, and less as scientific researchers. They're medical caregivers. Abductees as patients, a patient-doctor confidentiality in these cases. And some of these people don't even share the cases with other people on the ERT, or have had any intention of ever making any of these cases public. So I probably said too much, and I may no longer be on the board tomorrow, but that's my take on that, and that's my honest feelings about how MUFONs and abductions is proceeding at this point. It's not proceeding along the lines that I particularly like.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's fair. I mean, it's your opinion. Hopefully they don't have a big problem with it, but it makes sense. So,
and if they do an article in the MUFON journal, which once in a while somebody does one, I learn nothing new. I'm told that people have missing time. I'm told that people have events going back to childhood. Well, I knew that back in the 1980s, and I don't need to be told that again in an article. It's like, tell me some new cases, and are there any twists and turns that we should be aware of? Because Dave Jacobs and Bud Hopkins thought the thing was always evolving. Bud thought it was evolving slower maybe than Dave did, but nonetheless, they saw seeming changes going on as time went on. And I don't know whether that still applies. No
well,
idea.
it sounds like they're taking a page right out of the government book with their, their script of the same lines of information. We really don't got nothing new.
Well, next thing I know, they'll be part of AARO or something. Then we're in trouble.
Oh boy. Yeah. Let's not go there.
Just joking.
Here's the thing with the government. And tell me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you understand the organization of this stuff better than I do. But they're only going to be looking at military reports, correct? They don't look at civilian things.
That has been the case, correct.
That seems like they can limit their data. Very, very easy to nitpick and not do a very decent job of investigating.
We have no idea of the questions that are asked, of the types of investigations that are done of their witnesses, and to read their documents such as they've been. Like I said before, you wouldn't think that anybody except for military pilots was seeing UFOs. And that's, as I just indicated, with the numbers of sightings we're getting from MUFON, which are all, but for a tiny percentage, probably civilian cases. There's thousands of cases, and they've been occurring for year after year after year. Thousands. And we always get ones we can't explain. So, yeah, I wish they'd be a little more forthcoming. AARO didn't even tell us, out of the 800 cases that they supposedly have, how many were unexplained versus the IFOs. And they came out with a graph, a pie chart. And is that pie chart of cases that are just the IFOs mixed in with the UFOs? In that case, it's worthless. So it's extraordinarily frustrating dealing with the government.
I just had a thought go into my head and then come right out on this. I don't know. I guess it must be getting late. But
and we haven't even had anything to drink.
Yeah. I mean, I've had some Gatorade Zero,
Yeah.
not sponsoring the show, by the way,
Of
but
the distilled variety.
yeah. It just, I don't know. It's just so aggravating because when the government does something like that and they limit their data set, the general population doesn't understand how they are doing that, and then that muddies the water more because you have people that go, well, this guy with the government office says there's no evidence of UFOs, and this guy over here with NASA says there's absolutely, and I'm proud to say that there's no evidence of UFOs or reverse engineering. And then you get all the people that come out, so that fuels these skeptics out there. And I understand, I'm skeptical, but there's people that go like a step further when it comes to being skeptical, that they're deniers is what they turn into.
And they're even purveying false information because of the fact that they don't have a background knowledge of the UFO subject. For example, AARO said that most UFOs are seen at a height of something like 14,000 feet or more, and that the objects are usually 3 to 4 meters in diameter, or in the length of them. Well, that's completely incorrect. Many objects are seen at treetop level, right above a person's car. Most UFO sightings don't occur at 14,000 feet. Very few of shape analyses and proportions and sizes of these things over the years. Generally, it seems that most unexplained UFO sightings, the average size is it's about 30 feet in diameter when you see a discoidal object or an ovoid or a circle. Some of them are gigantic. Some of them are small. But 3 to 4 meters, 3 to 5 meters? No, sorry, not happening. I mean, they're wrong. They're just wrong. It's ignorance.
Yeah. See, and that's where I have problems with, Mr. Bassett. And I don't think we're going to get anything from the government. The more they can hide it, the better.
And you're just barking up. There might be something up the tree, but whatever's up the tree, you can bark at that tree all day long. It's not going to come down the tree. And,
that's fair.
Just look at the civilian sightings and make up. Let's come to our conclusions from those sightings, because they're really not much different from the military sightings.
Yeah,
they're just lower down a lot of times.
All right, Michelle, do you want to hit us up with the last couple of questions here as we start to wrap things up?
Yep, just wondering if you have any upcoming speaking engagements or appearances that you would like to tell the audience about.
Well, the only upcoming event I have is something called Mysteries of Space and Sky. It occurs in October in Maryland, right outside of Annapolis. Yeah, what's the date on that thing? I'm not even 100% sure of the date, to be honest with you, but I believe it's around the 21st or so of October. But if you just search for Mysteries of Space and Sky online, you will see that many times, and other people are appearing as well. So that's the only one I personally have on my docket coming up.
Well, then the last question that I have to ask, do you have any personal ties to Michigan? It's our signature question.
Yeah, I do, as a matter of fact.
Uh-oh.
Sightings you wanted? Yeah. Let me give you real quick here a Michigan update from January through August. You guys had on the MUFON CMS system 97 events, almost 100, and 5 of those were deemed unknown. Some are still being worked on, I'm sure. So that's about a 6%, 5% unknown rate. Let me give you real quickly here of these 5 unknown sightings. Here you go. One occurred on May 4th in Redford, Michigan at 9 o'clock in the night. Wayne, you'll like this one. It was a triangle seen about 1,000 feet high. It had perimeter lights going along each of the 3 sides of the triangle, and it was about here we go, 30 to 100 feet in size. So the thing was not 3 to 4 meters. On 11 April, someplace called Lathrop Village in Michigan at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. This was a kind of an interesting sighting. A person saw a 12-foot black ring 30 feet above, I don't know if it's a man or a woman. I'll just say him, but it could be a woman above him. I think it was 2 people actually, and it had a weird corkscrew type device, the center of the object, though there was no drawing, so I can't further elaborate on that. Case number 3, 12 February from Indian River, Michigan, 4:03 p.m. in the afternoon. An elongated shiny object was seen by a man at some altitude, and it was emitting smoke, whether it was coming out as a contrail or as a just smoke from the side of the thing. I don't know, and no drawing was provided. The investigator didn't seem to ask that question. A cigar-shaped object, I believe the 12th of February was one of the days that the military shot down something over Lake Huron. I think that was the day. I didn't have time to go back yet and correlate that, but the witness said it occurred that day, and he said, I thought I should report this sighting. Case number 4, 27 July, Scotts, Michigan, 9:40 in the morning. A fellow was out walking his dog. We get so many, thank God people walk dogs. We get a lot of sightings when people are walking dogs. A dull brown sphere flew by a mere 2 feet from the guy's head. It was about the size of a softball, and it was emitting a loud buzzing sound. At first he thought it was a mosquito, and he sort of brushed it off his ear. He thought it was flying around his ear. Then he looked over and he saw this brown object literally like almost hit him, and then fly into a grove of trees or woods and vanished. The last one I have, the last of the 5 unknowns, 10 May in DeWitt, Michigan at 11:20 in the night. A bright white light, a point of light, was seen moving up and down, and through binoculars, the witness said, I think it was a woman, said she thought it appeared to have wind. Was adjudged to be unknown as well.
You
so
broke
those are your
up right
5.
when you said the witness.
Yeah, the witness looked at the object in this last case through binoculars and thought to see or differentiate 5 windows in some kind of an object. I have no idea what the power of the binoculars was, and there wasn't a lot of write-up on this case, so I wish I could give you a little more on it. But that's your quick look at Michigan for 2023.
Wow. Those triangular cases, man, those are the ones that always perk up my ears because, man, the thing we saw was at least 300 feet on a side. It was huge. Never seen anything like that in aviation ever.
Well, and Redford's not that far either.
Yeah, and Dave Marler's your man for triangular UFOs.
Yeah, but he sent us to you.
Or boomerang-shaped things. Well, maybe both of us. No, I'm just kidding. He's an excellent source. Excellent source. Let me give you again one more series of figures here, or maybe names. Just give you the list of so far this year. What are the states that have the most sightings in order? California, of course, large population, large state, 319 cases reported on MUFON. Florida, second, 257. Texas, third at 213, 213. Arizona, 158 cases, and Pennsylvania rounds out the top 5 at 140. Now, you guys are down there with 97 cases, but you're sort of in the middle of the pack in Michigan. So that's how matters stand out with regard to states. I did not do that for countries, but I could have. Maybe I should have.
Yeah, that's real. Before we totally end this, I wanted to ask you, have you ever heard of people having these experiences and then waking up in the middle of the night or looking at a clock and it's always the same time? Because I've taken pictures of my phone where I've waken up in the middle of the night and it's been for, I don't even know how long now, 3 years, 4 years. It's been 3:33. And I just wondered if that's like a common occurrence with people that have had really close experiences.
To my knowledge, it's not a common experience where it appears in like 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 2 cases. And I worked with a lot of abductees around the turn of the century for a sensor project we had going on. But yeah, there were times of the month when it was more prevalent. Yeah, they were more likely to be abducted from others. It varied individual by individual, but it wouldn't surprise me if something like what you described has been reported by other people. That sounds very believable.
Okay.
I wish I could cite to you a case where it has, but it sounds like I may have encountered that, but it sounds yeah, like that would be the kind of thing I would expect to hear someone say sooner or later.
Yep, and just there's our super guy right there, Guy Merritt. So, Guy, I know you showed up after we showed your winning T-shirt, and you're happy at Pine Knob, enjoying the ZZ Top concert right there. So, wanted to make sure we got that back up there for you. All right. Well, Rob, it's been a great time. We've really enjoyed having you on the show. And, man, just wealth of information there. Every time we talk to somebody from MUFON, we learn something new, whether it's Sev Talk or Terry Lane Keel or our favorite guy, Bill Konkoleski, right here from Michigan. And now it's awesome to add you to that mix and get your take on things. So we really do appreciate you coming on.
It's been a pleasure. Believe me, it's, you know, and thanks for the questions, everybody. I appreciate those. And we could keep going on here for hours, but I mean, we'll all have to go to sleep sooner or later. Have something to eat. But thanks for the opportunity and the privilege of being on the podcast tonight, Wayne and Michelle. It's just been great. Really fun.
All right.
Thanks
Great.
for the good questions.
Yep. You are welcome. And anytime you want to come back on, just let us know. We'll set it up.
Appreciate that. Yeah. I'll be in touch with you.
Okay, great. All right, everybody. That was awesome. We had Rob Swiatek on from MUFON. He is one of the board members of MUFON. You guys had some great questions. Just amazing show tonight, even though we're running on fumes.
You know what? And you know what starts on Sunday, right?
No, what starts on Sunday?
It's the month of October. Time for some scary stuff.
Yep, we're going to go into the paranormal zone. However, in October, we will be having Micah Hanks come on. We're just figuring out the final date. So Micah Hanks is going to come on and talk with us and talk about a wealth of information there. What an awesome guy to talk to. So, all right, Michelle, I think it's that time.
Have a great night, everyone.
Have a great night, everybody. And remember, keep your eyes to that sky.